Okay, 401. Hello, everybody. My name's Hudson Worsley. I'm the chair of MECLA, Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance. Thank you for dialing into this session where we're going to talk about what's next for MECLA, or phase 4 as we are calling it. So welcome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. I am joining you from Gadigal country of the Eora Nation, and like all MECLA events, we recognise that we're all on Indigenous land and pay respects to elders past and present. It's not all that likely that we're going to come into conflicts of interest or sailing close to our governance framework, but just keep that in mind. We operate emphatically in a pre-competition environment for the common good rather than for immediate commercial advantage. So yeah, if you feel there may be a conflict, please raise your hand and we'll deal with it. This is a session about information, engaging with you and putting forward what the Secretariat with the Project Control Group have developed around how MECLA can continue to operate, sustain itself for this next phase. You may well have questions. I'd like you to have questions. If you do, please, this is a Zoom session, so use the Q&A function, and then I will soon be joined by the Secretariat, Monica Richter, Kati Verheyen and Alexi Barnstone. They'll also be talking to the presentation and taking the Q&A session in the second half of this of today's event. And finally, we are recording this so that people who would like to know what's going on but haven't been able to get diary time, they'll have that ability. So let's go. Next slide, please, Alexi. All right, so MECLA has been going now for about 4 years. Our phase 1 is what I would call startup. We've got a pie chart for each phase, really showing what was the makeup of funding in each period. But that into 2021 to 2022, mixed funding significantly from government, from industry, philanthropy, and also the generosity of WWF. Phase 2, we were starting to scale up. We established the value proposition, what we were doing, the value of the network. And as many of you have heard me say, we wanted 40 members back in phase 1, and that was really growing. So phase 2 took us into a different area, more industry funding, less philanthropy, but still from WWF and government. As we got to the end of that period, our project control group and other members really reinforced to us that the need for MECLA and this systems approach to addressing embodied carbon in construction and infrastructure was really valid and paying a dividend. It was achieving change. It was influencing policy and policy levers as well as commercial decisions and outcomes. That took us into phase 3. Still with WWF contributing the largest chunk in that phase, Climate Kick and Precinct as well, or particularly with some pro bono work contributing to that, but government, industry, and also philanthropy. It also, one of the reasons that the Secretariat came under a bit of pressure there is that our membership number reached 190 and is now above that. Now, as you can imagine, that's a great problem to have, because that means we're filling out the ecosystem, the representatives from the ecosystem, to be part of our do tank, to be addressing the problems and the challenges that we know are there, but finding the enablers and the solutions as well. And that membership base, I think, is what gives MECLA the clout that we'll be able, in a couple of slides time, I'll show you the areas that we've been able to influence, and I guess we call that our momentum. So now the question is, what's next? Phase 4, we see this as looking for multiple funding sources over a 3-year horizon to give us that certainty that we've got more work to do, particularly moving from the tier 1 leaders who are dialed in now to the smaller, medium organisations and other parts of government that haven't yet engaged in this decarbonisation of materials. That's what we need to do. But at the moment, our funding isn't sufficient to continue this work, and so that's why we're talking. Next slide, Alexi. All right, so this next phase, we see, I suppose, three major areas of funding, and then the pyramid, three major areas to allocate that funding to drive the change in the industry. The foundation funding will have to come from industry funding based on membership. So a pay-to-play membership model is really where we need to be. We expect, and we've been doing a lot of engagement with government, all sorts of government agencies, departments, from local government, state and Commonwealth. They want to essentially fund project-based activities. So that's something that we'll be packaging up, whether that's a nutcracker or another initiative, but paying for specific programs and project-based activities. CRC funding, cooperative research centres, they're a industry research partnership, and I'll actually ask Kati Verheyen to talk about those in a moment, but that's leveraging their existing funding with our funding to achieve even more. That's not us funding them, that's collaborative funding to do more. And then if there are at times when projects or departments approach MECLA to do some consulting work or to provide advice, and that's the type of project and consultation work. We don't expect that to be a huge sum, but it is a nice top-up amount. So we imagine that'll be there as well. So this gives us the foundation of running the Secretariat so that our working groups, our knowledge management, engagement, and events can be run to a professional standard. We'll then have deliverables that bring our expertise from the working groups, from our project teams, out to our audience. And then, ultimately that's all about influencing the net zero built environment. So that's, I guess, the what and what we'll be doing. Next slide, Alexi. As I mentioned, a 3-year horizon to give some certainty to our funders and to us, the MECLA Secretariat and the do tank, the working groups. This is how long we'll be around. The $350,000 per financial year. We've really pared back what is a minimal viable product, recognizing, sure, if we had more, we could do more, but that's kind of a bare bones Secretariat operation. It'd be terrific to go beyond that, but that's kind of the minimal viable amount for those 3 years. And yeah, as I'm saying, it's a paid membership industry fundraising model. Next slide. All right, so what does that fund? So the Secretariat, managed by WWF Climate Kick and My Business Precinct, I think anybody dialing in has seen that the function that the Secretariat plays, and it's a lot of work, particularly Monica and Kati and Alexi have all been working way beyond, paid hours to keep the Secretariat functioning so that working groups are behind the scenes, the mechanisms are there, and to keep that happening, knowledge is well managed and so on. The recordings, all of that behind the scenes stuff takes effort, takes time, and that comes with a cost. The event management, as we know, when MECLA does something, I'd like to think we do it very well, but managing roundtables, allocating CPD points, that type of thing, that takes time. Managing the Knowledge Hub with its case studies and Mythbusters and SharePoints and so on, our publications, that also takes effort and time. The network governance, bringing people on board, making sure there's alignment with our governance principles and so on. I mentioned that the 190 members, but across that's over 400 people. That's a lot of effort. And then there's the providing submissions and feedback to government. We're often a stakeholder of choice when a policy is being developed, and providing evidence-based, stakeholder-based input back to government. That takes time as well. And together we've summed up that's about the $350,000. All right. Hopefully you've seen this slide before, but it's really saying, look, this is what we're up to. We've got 450 active contributors from our three sectors: industry, government, academia. And the map shows you we need to find some Tasmanians and Northern Territorians, but we're doing pretty well to cover the major states there. With our partnership organisations, that's a great number to show the validity of what we're doing, the breadth of what we're doing. Our website and engagement numbers are terrific. I think that's really showing active engagement, not just passive. Yep, the materials are there. The materials are there, but people are using them. Our feedback, we're providing a lot of that at all levels of government. Our presentations, our publications, our spotlights and deep dives, all value that MECLA is delivering. I think the 2,500 CPD points issued, that's a terrific takeaway that says, look, we are contributing to the capability uplift, so that our professions are up to date and staying up to date when it comes to understanding embodied carbon and what to do about it. Next slide. All right, now if someone says, what's MECLA achieved? What do you mean by momentum? I think now I won't claim that any one of these is purely because of MECLA, but I can say that MECLA has had a hand in contributing, shaping, pushing, editing, tailoring, and delivering each of the documents or the outcomes that you can see on the screen there, whether that's the fantastic uptick of EPDs that are now in the ANZ region, whether that's policy at the state level, many states acting here, whether that's federal government, the National Construction Code, internationally, the Monoro database, and then work with infrastructure agencies, with procurement, with policy groups, with the Green Building Council. We've also had terrific work with the Infrastructure Sustainability Council that we're going to have to add to this slide. So there's a lot there that you can point to and say, yep, that is what momentum looks like. Off script, I'd also like to add to this one that if an organisation is saying, well, why should we contribute funds to MECLA? I think particularly with mandatory reporting that is now hitting fiduciary responsibilities and board concerns around the country for big organisations. If you're a big organisation, that's you. Or if you're a small organisation, those big guys are your clients or your customers or your suppliers. And so the need to be across the embodied carbon component, the Scope 3 component of mandatory reporting, this is helping stay ahead of the curve by being part of the change that MECLA is driving. So organisations, yes, it's contributing to the bigger picture, but I think it's also contributing to one's own organisation and its readiness for mandatory reporting and helping manage the transition risk that is part of climate risk management. So not the physical risk type of thing, but the fact that when we know we need to be decarbonising and understanding the embodied carbon component of that in our sector, this is active transition risk management. Next slide. All right, so what are we contributing to the broader community, to the industry? I think here you can see our events, whether they're spotlights, briefings, nutcrackers, roundtables. Gosh, we've got some good terminology there. There's lots happening. Our network and how we put that forward through LinkedIn, through representing MECLA in many forums, through our conversation engagement, our presentations, our publications. That's quite a library we have there now. recordings of events that could, well, I think we could have our own YouTube channel. There is lots in there. Our newsletter, terrific way of staying abreast of what's going on a monthly basis. And then our case studies, we know that myth busting is such an important part of the change. Together, all of this is helping in that transition to a Paris Agreement aligned circular economy. So I'm very proud of what's there. We want to keep it moving, and that's why we're talking to you now. Next slide. All right, there's quite a lot of detail in this slide, and I won't go into all of it, but the point here is, you've heard me talk about MECLA as a do tank. It's the working groups where the doing takes place, and each of our working groups is driving deliverables that contribute to this change, this momentum that we're talking about. If you're a member of one of those working groups or subgroups, you'll know this. If you're in one or two groups, this is a good way of seeing what others are doing. And we'll be sharing these slides. So don't need to go into all of the bullet points right now, but suffice to say, there is a lot going on. It's targeted to address the challenges that each group has been set up to address. So lots happening, which is fantastic. Next slide. All right. Now, Kati, can I bring you into the conversation at this point?
Hello.
Hello. Kati, thank you. Can I hand over to you here?
Yeah, sure.
Terrific.
So I'll start with some of the future areas that working groups have identified. So when we had conversations with MECLA, with our PCG and our PLG, conversations we have every year, thinking about, has MECLA done the work that needed to be done, or is there more work to do? We regularly come with this answer that says, oh, MECLA has delivered so much and has brought the industry so much further when it comes about embodied carbon, but there are so many topics still. And the scope is, with MECLA, growing and sort of moving around a bit. So some of the topics that have been identified as being of real interest are on this slide. We're talking about designing out upfront carbon. It's not just about replacing materials with lower embodied carbon materials, but it is about, like, how can we design out carbon upfront, for example, or how can we talk about low carbon fit out deliveries, and many other topics. I won't go into details what these are because we'll be sending you the slides. I just wanted to put them here as some ideas that have been put out by members of our working groups. And that's exactly where some of that additional funding is supposed to be going. So if I can bring you back in your mind, not on the slide, to the third slide where you had the triangle of the funding sources, where you had the bottom one with the industry funding to sort of continue the secretariat functions. And then we had the government project-based funding, the CRC funding, and the MECLA adjacent funding. This is where we'll be looking at for some of these ideas that have come out of the working groups, or other ideas that are coming out of the working groups. And that's really where the bonus of being a member in that next phase for MECLA is going to be. There are many ideas and needs coming out of those working groups that are identified by them, where the scope of what needs to be worked out or looked at might just be too big a task for the do tank to do in the time that it is required to do. Sometimes the delivery needs to happen really quickly, and sometimes the scope of the work is just too big to be delivered by the members who are, as we know, doing the do tank work in kind. So these are these areas where we can look at and say, like, okay, so this working group, the members of the industry members, the research members, and the government members have identified these needs, and we can look at finding the funding for this, whether that's through government projects where government comes to us with a specific ask, or where we think government might be a good funder for these things, whether it's CRCs or any other adjacent funding. So next slide, please. I do want to raise the CRC funding as one point here. So before I talk anything about CRCs, we are not trying to set up our own CRC. CRCs are cooperative research centres. We do have some very active in MECLA, like Smart Creed, Race for 2030, Building 4.0 CRC. They're members, and these CRCs, they're government-funded programs that bring together researchers from other universities, that bring together research institutions and industry partners to work collaboratively. And the research that they're looking for is driven by industry needs, or by the need from industry to find a solution for a practical problem. And this is exactly what we're imagining that we can deliver through MECLA. If a working group can identify one such need or such industry research needs, then we can take some of that industry funding, some of that pool funding of the 350,000 that we matched, and use this as the industry funding part that will be matched by universities, or by that sort of CRC funding, along with industry contributions and in-kind. We can imagine that similar things might happen for other projects that are not CRC projects, where we might have a funder who says, "Oh, I think this is a really interesting project, but I want to see some industry funding that goes in there." And we actually have the case with one of the subgroups, the Readiness Index Working Group, where they have delivered the first round, or they have delivered input into the first round of the Infrastructure New South Wales survey for the Readiness Index. And that working group is really keen to deliver the second and third round of that survey to see how is industry readiness continuing. So some of the chair, Anne Austin, has approached some funders, and there is real interest in this, but the funders obviously say, like, yeah, okay, well, I would love to see some industry funding on this. So if we can get sufficient industry funding, we can pool some of that money into those projects and bring the overall funding up to get someone to assist with that work and manage it through MECLA. Next slide. So let's talk about the benefits of being a member. Some of that I've already mentioned. As part of a working group, you have that opportunity to shape what those projects are that we might be suggesting to CRCs and other industry funders, or taking to government for funding. You're being part of the working group and that capability uplift that comes through that. As an organisation, you have the continued ability to have that brand association on the MECLA website and our logo slides, or the recognition of having the logo in your annual reports, as has always been the case. You'd obviously be have the opportunity to participate in MECLA events and be automatically part of any industry reference group that might be part of future CRC projects, and have direct input into those feedback sessions to government policies that Hudson mentioned earlier. An additional change we are making is the CPD points for our spotlight events. These will be free for MECLA members, and available to them for free. Okay, next slide. So when is this change going to happen? It is not happening on the 1st of July. We're not going to kick everyone out who's participating right now. There will be a longish transition period until the end of the year to give everyone an opportunity to make those decisions, whether you see the continued value to being a member or not. There is that opportunity to see a little bit closer what will be coming. Once that period is over, we will have to make cuts, for example, with attendance of working group meetings or other events that we're hosting, such as deep dives that we're doing, or Nutcracker events where that's the case. The CPD points I've mentioned already. There's more on that on our website and our governance for you to see. Next slide, please. And this is your last slide. So beyond that, we can go into questions. So the membership fees are listed here. They haven't changed since we started up 3 years ago when we first asked for this. So they are largely the same. One change that is happening is that the invoicing of this will go from WWF, who has been invoicing sending the invoices before. It will move to UTS. So you will have to sign a little contract with UTS for this, and where you also tick where your organization sits and how and when you want to be invoiced. The format of the contract is the same thing as before, so there's no 15-page contract that the university will be sending you. It's the same as it was before. It's just that it's going to UTS. And at this time, you still have the opportunity to be invoiced for the end of the financial year. The other option that you have is to come forward as a sponsor of an event. If you say, I really cannot pay the entire membership fee, there is this option also available. And that's it from me. I think we'll be sending you all of this, so you can go into more detail on this after the event. Thank you.
Thanks, Kati. I might invite Monica and Alexi to also turn on your cameras. And we haven't been flooded with questions yet, but Claire Tubeletz from this SmartCrete CLC has made a suggestion in the Q&A about taking the conversation to Cooperative Research Australia. She's happy to facilitate that conversation. I think that just makes sense. That's a great idea. We've already had some terrific conversations and collaboration with Claire and the SmartCrete CRC. So that's a good example. Kati, maybe you could talk to that, where the nutcracker that we ran for the industrial sheds identified the need for trials, and then the CRC was a mechanism, a way to then move into that practical side of things. Oh, you're on mute there.
Yes. 4 years of working online and still
it still happens.
And that still happens. Yes, of course. The nutcracker, we ran a nutcracker last year with a range of second and third tier contractors that had identified problems with being able to bring down the amount of cementitious material, bring up the amount of cementitious materials to lower the embodied carbon in slabs in industrial warehouses. And we were able to bring together 80 participants across the value chain to talk about how can this be changed. And one of the issues raised in there was that sometimes you can get all the way through procurement of the material and you rock up at the construction site, and this is not just industrial warehouses, but this is across the board, and you come across an issue with the delivery of the low embodied carbon concrete project, where the places or the project manager on site say, we can't work with this. This is not what we think it should look like. It doesn't feel right. I haven't worked with this. I cannot take the responsibility for this material to be placed here today because I don't know how it performs. And that was a stumbling block. And so we had some places actually in the Nutcracker event on the day who were saying, yeah, that's true, but that's an issue that can easily be solved. We don't need to practice this on massive slabs of 2,000 square meters. We can practice this on smaller footpaths to the warehouse. So one of the ideas born out of that was actually with Claire talking to councils and looking at can we get a pouring pilot going to see whether there is an opportunity to train up places in an easy, practical way around how to work with lower embodied carbon concrete and develop some materials around that can be shared with the industry. And that's what we're doing right now. So keep you posted on that.
It's a great applied example. Thanks, Kati. Carolyn Pidcock's asked the question, are there special deals for membership organisations? What's our response to that?
There are. reach out to us. We can talk about it. But there's something, if you, for example, if you're willing to make a commitment and pay upfront for the 3 years, we're looking for 3 years, then we can offer reductions there. And reach out to us if you have other ideas, what you are willing to, agree on. We're open to conversations about this.
Terrific, terrific.
Hudson, can I make a comment, please?
Please do.
So our Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, gave a speech today at the Press Club, and this was all about economic reform and the productivity agenda. And we know, particularly housing is performing very poorly around productivity and so on. And this particular speech, which I'll pop into the chat, I think kind of sets a very clear marker for the federal government's kind of direction of travel. They want to be their second term, large majority, a government of reform, very similar, I guess, they see themselves very similar to the Hawke-Keating in terms of the competition, other reforms, and that economic reform. So within the 5-pillar productivity agenda, they talk about investing in the net zero transformation. They talk about the importance of, modernising the electricity grid, seizing the opportunity for net zero, future made in Australia. And, that is all the work that we collectively, the built environment and infrastructure industry, does to actually help deliver on the government's agenda. And we know that there are a whole range of productivity vampires that are preventing us from being more efficient. And, I think MECLA is one of those collaboration initiatives between industry and government that can help the governments, as well as councils, as well as all of the private sector organizations who have various targets, driven by shareholder finance sector requirements. This is our agenda to be able to deliver on. So, we're not just thinking about these short-term gains. This is about that long-term economic reform agenda that we are all contributing to. And so when thinking about this in the context of, the $10,000, $5,000, $1,000 contributions, really, it's being able to upskill yourselves, the staff members and your organisations to be delivering against this very ambitious, hard economic agenda that we have to deliver, because we are right in the messy middle of this, transformation process. Our trading partners are. We've got a whole range of geostrategic challenges that we face. Everybody knows that. If you watch the news, even once a week, you'll know that it's really complex at a time when we have increasing pressures around, sort of climate and nature and so on. So, I think collectively in being able to bring that industry government leadership together and help the government deliver on this agenda will be to our great, both the business bottom line advantage, but also our collective future advantages as well. So really just wanted to make that comment.
Yes, strangely enough, I totally agree with you, Monica. That's good. I didn't catch Jim Chalmers in the press gallery, but it sounds like it's worth catching. Certainly the highlights. But productivity, I think when I hear productivity, I'm always thinking material productivity because of the MECLA hat that we wear. But if I heard at Sydney Build a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with Gamuda and John Holland on the stage, and it was the Gamuda representative who just said, look, we manage carbon as a way of managing costs. I'm paraphrasing, but by having a really good handle on the carbon side of their major projects, they drive efficiency, and I think that's a productivity dividend from this work. One of the questions in the chat, Alexia, I might bring you into the conversation around the industry portion of funding. It's the question from Nicole there. Would you be happy having a go at answering that one?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So In previous phases, across phase 2 and 3, we had about 98 different partner organizations. The question around how many we need to sort of support MECLA's ongoing function is one that's contingent on the size of organization that's contributing because it scales. What I would say is if we can get contributions from the larger end of town, 15 or 20 of those players to put their hand up and contribute that 10,000, that gets us very close to what's necessary for us to continue to function. So really depends on the size of organization, but for us, we've tended to hit our mark when we get around, I would say 35 to 45 organizations total, including many from the tier 1 organizations in the industry. That said, I'll also just add that we have 190 partner organizations that sit in MECLA. So we've never had a model that functions with everybody contributing to what we can do. We're very aware that there's likely to be some drop off with this shift in how we operate. But also, if we're able to bring in extra funds, it just means that we're able to do more in terms of delivering low carbon outcomes to the marketplace. More government engagement, more events, more feedback on policy, all of those various things that help with shifting the dial and delivering those outcomes. Hudson, I just wanted to also point out that there's a question in the chat from David on future areas of focus.
Yes, I have seen that, and I was actually going to ask Kati maybe too. She's smiling because she's read my mind. Maybe ask you to have a look at that one, Kati.
Yes, yes. So the future areas of focus, there are some that have been cropping up for a while, and there are people that are really, really keen to turn that into future working groups, the Designing Out Carbon being one of them. And we will be looking at those ideas, whether they are worth turning into a working group or rather a series of workshops potentially, depending on what the need is, and also if there is the funding for this, or if we have a particular project to do any deliverables. As for will membership be allowed to co-design, that is absolutely the idea. If you're a member, we want you to bring those industry needs and desires and wants into the conversation. And if we get enough traction in those working groups to come up with ideas, we do have this process within MECLA where it goes through the different steps, through the PCG and the PLG for approval, to make sure that there's a need across the entire network for these topics, or it is a significant need for a part of that network to be considered as a topic, and obviously whether we can get the sufficient funding and supporting resources ready for this. But yes, we absolutely do want this to be industry-led, research-led, and government-led through our members.
I think the term industry-led is a really good one, Kati, to emphasize with examples. The slide that showed all of the different policy outputs or government strategy documents, that type of deliverable that we have contributed to the co-design, I think is a really good way of showing where we have influence from our membership. The work with the Australasian Procurement and Construction Council comes to mind, where they were planning to work on this because we know them, said, hey, MECLA, what do you think we should do? What should be part of our framing of this? And at each point of that document's life cycle, we're helping shape what that would look like. Not to say that MECLA wrote it, but MECLA gave strong industry-based advice on what does industry need to be asked by government procurement professionals if embodied carbon is going to be successfully addressed. And so it wasn't somebody just on the bureaucracy side influencing this. It was us as industry representatives bringing our membership insight to bear as they were developing that document. And that's the case for all of the other items that were on that slide. And that's, to me, that's what it means when we say we've got industry insight and industry influence into the change. I think that's a really important thing to mention. Alexi, do you want to take CJ's question there?
Happy to. Americans have to answer other Americans' questions, right? In the chat, that's the rule. CJ asks, in the phase 4 funding model, a portion is from MECLA adjacent projects and consultations. Will members be involved with spearheading these projects consultations? If not, who will? So this ties in, I think, also with what we were just discussing, which is, the idea in these collaborative project deliveries is for us as the Secretariat to support them, but also to leverage the knowledge base within the working groups to co-deliver. So depending on how the funding is set up, we may bring in different people within the working groups to support the delivery of those projects. Similarly, if it's through a CRC, the CRC would have some capacity to support in the project management and delivery or research that's being done. So it's always going to be a sort of collaborative model, and it'll be based on the individual project and how that project is set up in terms of the details of how that functions. I know that's a slightly amorphous answer, but it really is contingent on sort of the funding and what that project looks like and what type of expertise we need. We're never going to sit here and say that us four are the knowledge brokers of all good things embodied carbon in the marketplace. We rely very much on all of our members and the collaborations that we have to help with driving those discussions. And so any project that we're doing, we similarly will need to engage the experts in that particular field to deliver those outcomes.
I think that's a great point, Alexi, that it's, the Secretariat is there. We can't help but absorb knowledge and hear from the examples of our specialist members. But when it comes to concrete and the cement component of that, our working group on concrete and cement is such a fantastic microcosm of that subsector of the industry. The deep knowledge there, but also the representation. So we've got that low carbon concrete guide that's being updated, I think, for the second time, so up to version 3 coming soon, is a great example. It's not just a concrete supplier wanting to sell its wares. Yes, there's a cement maker, but there's also a local government. There are specialist consultants. There are design engineers in that group, and so that's where the magic happens, because it's that deep dive, but that is then facilitated by you and Kati and Monica and me. So yeah, that to me is the value proposition. James Marsh has asked, how are the numbers looking so far regarding commitments? Who's Alexi?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer it. Or Kati, we're annoying everyone in the back end. So if you're receiving a bunch of emails from me, my apologies, but it is necessary for us in taking these next steps. We've raised, I think, just over 60,000 so far since we've started. We got a couple new confirmations come in this morning as well. We only started this engagement process about a week and a half ago. So it's very much early days in terms of having those conversations and getting people in the door. We also have a couple of projects that should be signed off on that will add to that pool of funds in the coming weeks, which I don't know how much we can disclose on until they're officially sort of confirmed. But there'll be some other funds that come in through some of the collaborations we have with different research networks. Kati, do you want to add to that?
Yes, those other projects are those adjacent projects or ones where we had talked about they require some industry funding potentially. And we'll let you know as soon as that has been finalized. The one thing I want to add to Alexi's is that right now, if you want to be invoiced before the end of the financial year, it's the 18th, and universities take a little bit of time to process invoices because they're very large institutions. So if you do want that invoice before the end of the financial year, do reach out quickly, and we'll try and really push that through quickly.
Just looking to see where we're up to with questions. Monica, have you got any other wisdom you'd like to pass on, or Dorothy Dick's questions for one of us to?
Well, I was at a Cedar Chatham House event on Monday with a group of kind of industry players, and it's pretty clear to me that, you know, there is still a long way to go for kind of the manufacturers to feel confident that there's going to be enough pull through on the demand side to really help drive their ambitions in low carbon manufacturing and building materials. And, you know, there are a range of other barriers as well. And I think, you know, one of the areas that is going to be important to lean into, you know, is a very clear government procurement expectations and requirements. So, you know, New South Infrastructure New South Wales, Transport for New South Wales have done some good work. It's still not necessarily being, you know, trickled down into specific projects and contracting, but I'm sure that over time that will happen. There's some good work happening around, you know, in WA and other jurisdictions, obviously, but there is still, you know, far more work to do to support the manufacturers to align and drive that ambition and give confidence to government agencies that the materials are there. So, you know, I think that's this, you know, we haven't solved the problem yet. You know, there's still a long way to go. And I guess the other reflection is when you're looking at the sectoral decarbonisation plans, you know, there's still a long way to go for industry to decarbonise. You know, the renewable energy rollout is slowing down, and we need to fast track some of that process as well. And I think, you know, sort of MECLA, it's a new, you know, it's not an industry association. We're a collaboration of individuals and organisations coming together to try and address these complex, wicked systems level challenges. And, you know, I do feel we have the right formula and the right people to be able to deliver on this going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Monica. I think those broader policy implications are always great to hear because, yeah, the productivity side of things, the whole economic transition that we're facing, I've loved to see the way a network of otherwise transactionally related organizations can come together to talk well before transactions take place, to have relationships that form the foundation of change. It's bloody marvelous. So look, I think we've probably gone a little bit over the scheduled time. Thank you guys for your input and taking questions on the fly, for all of the work that's gone into the modelling and the structuring of how do we move into this next phase. Thank you very much for the people who've dialed in. We've got about 60 people online now. We had a few more earlier. Thanks for your time. Please do reach out. You're getting emails from us. We're happy to hear from you. We're flexible, but we're also ambitious to keep going. So thank you. Thanks for your time. We'll stay in touch. Keep an eye on our socials as always, and look forward to engaging further with you and keeping working on our do tank. So thanks everybody. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, bye.